Lower your lights and listen carefully. Welcome to Dark Frame, where every story is carefully framed and every truth is slightly distorted. Here, nothing is what it seems. Voices can't be trusted, memories lie, and the ending is never what you expect. So stay focused, watch closely, because once you enter Dark Frame, there's no turning back. You know what the creepiest part of a disappearance isn't? It's not the empty chair. It's not the unanswered texts. It's not even the moment the police knock on your door and ask when you last saw her. The creepiest part, the thing that actually messes with your head, is when you realize you might be the only person alive who knows exactly what happened. And you're not sure how to feel about that. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 38 years old. I live alone on Calloway Street, in a quiet little neighborhood where nothing ever happens. Or, that's what I used to tell people. Claire Voss disappeared on a Thursday night, September 14th. I remember because I'd just taken out my recycling, and I saw her kitchen light on through her window. That was the last time anyone reported seeing her alive. The police said anyone. What they meant was that anyone admitted to. Today I'm going to walk you through everything that happened. Every clue, every overlooked detail, every moment that in hindsight should have told someone, should have told me what was really going on. Stick with me, because this story, it doesn't end where you think it does.
They let me go. I want you to sit with that for a second, because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how? How does someone walk out of that room after everything I told you last time? The answer is simpler than you want it to be. A photograph of a car parked on a street is not a crime. Being someone's neighbor is not a crime. Telling a detective you were home when you weren't, well, that's a problem. That's something called obstruction. But it's not the big thing. It's not the thing they actually need. And they didn't have the big thing. They still don't. So now I'm here. Apartment 4B, Meridian Tower, East 34th, 14th floor, City View. I can see about 3 square miles of rooftop from this window if the sky is clear, which it almost never is. There's a bodega on the corner that plays bachata until midnight. Upstairs from me, a couple argues every Thursday. You could set a clock to it. And somewhere in this building, on a floor I haven't figured out yet, someone practices cello at odd hours, just scales, over and over, like they're learning something they should have already known by now. I moved here because Calloway Street was done for me. You can't go back to a place after something like that. The way people look at you, the silences that stretch a little too long when you walk by. Mrs. Abernathy won't even get her mail when she sees my car, which is fine, I understand. People process things differently. I process things by talking about them, which is what I'm doing now, talking. The apartment is mostly bare still. I've got a bed, a desk, a good lamp, and a shelf of books I've read too many times. I don't put art on walls, never have. Art on walls makes a place feel permanent, and I've learned not to get too attached to permanent. I have a routine here now. Wake at 6, coffee, no sugar, walk the block twice because the body needs movement even when the mind wants to stay still. Come back, sit at the desk, think. A lot of thinking happens at this desk, and lately all of it leads back to Claire. Here's something nobody ever tells you about guilt. Real guilt, the kind that lives in the bone. It doesn't feel like shame. It doesn't feel like regret. It feels like a problem you haven't solved yet. And my brain, this specific, exhausting brain that I have carried around for 38 years, does not tolerate unsolved problems. It turns them over, runs them back, looks for the angle that makes the math work. So I've been doing that, running it back, and I want to tell you what I've found because I think you deserve to hear the version of this story that the detective never bothered to chase. Claire Voss did not have a simple life before Calloway Street. I know that now in ways I didn't fully understand then. Before she moved to the suburbs, before the quiet neighborhood and the morning runs and the cat named Sullivan, she spent 3 years working as a forensic accountant for a firm called Harwick & Sloan. Mid-sized financial consultancy, nothing flashy. The kind of company that exists in the spaces between bigger companies, doing work that doesn't get advertised. During those 3 years, Claire found something, a discrepancy in a set of accounts that she was never supposed to look that closely at. She was good at her job, maybe too good, and when she flagged it internally, she was quietly reassigned, then quietly let go, and she signed something on her way out the door. The kind of document they put in front of you when they want you to understand that your silence has a dollar value attached to it. She took the money, and she moved to Calloway Street, and she adopted Sullivan from a shelter, and she ran at 6 a.m. every morning, because routine is what you build when everything else feels like it could fall apart. I know all of this because Claire told me, not all at once, over time, in pieces. The wine on the back porch wasn't the only conversation we ever had. There were others, more than I told the detective, more than I told anyone. And yes, I know how that sounds. I know you're sitting there recalibrating right now, wondering what else I left out. That's fair. That's the right instinct. You should wonder that. But here's the thing I need you to understand. Everything I've just told you, about Harwick and Sloan, about the discrepancy, about the document she signed, none of that is something I invented. I can't invent something I don't know enough about to fabricate. Financial forensics isn't my world. I'm just a guy who paid attention when someone who needed to be heard finally started talking. The question you should be asking right now is, why was she telling me? And the answer to that part of this story that keeps me up at night, that makes the cello scales upstairs feel like a kind of company I didn't ask for but can't make myself resent. Claire was telling me because she thought I could help her. She thought I was someone she could trust.
I'm going to tell you what happened that night. The real version, not the version I gave the detective, not the version I gave myself for the first few weeks afterward when I needed to sleep. The real one. She called me at 9:47 p.m. I know the exact time because I still have the call log, and I've looked at it more times than I want to admit. 9 minutes and 12 seconds. That was the whole conversation. She said she thought someone had been in her house. She didn't know how, nothing was missing, nothing was moved, but she had this feeling, she said. The kind of feeling you learn to trust when you've spent years looking for things that other people hide. She asked if I would come over. Just to check, just to walk through with her so she didn't feel crazy. I drove over. That's what the traffic camera caught. Me driving over, not away. Over. I parked down the street because her driveway had a bad angle and I didn't want to block her in. I knocked on the side door, the one that faced the backyard. She let me in. The kitchen light was on. Sullivan was asleep on the counter like nothing in the world was wrong. We walked through the house together, all 6 rooms. Closets, the basement, the garage, nothing, nobody, everything exactly where it should be. She started to relax a little, made tea. We sat at the kitchen table and she apologized for calling so late and I said, "Don't be ridiculous." And then her phone buzzed. She looked at it and the color left her face like someone had opened a window in January. She turned the phone around and showed me the screen. It was a photo, taken from outside through a window, of her kitchen, of the 2 of us, sitting at that table, taken maybe 3 minutes before. Someone was outside that house while we were inside it, walking through every room looking for them. I told her to call the police, right then. I said, "Don't wait, call right now." She was shaking. She picked up the phone and then she stopped. And she looked at me with this expression I have never been able to shake. It was not fear, exactly. It was something older than fear. It was the look of someone who has already calculated the odds and found them wanting. She said, "If I call the police, I have to explain why someone would do this. And if I explain that, I explain the document I signed. And if I explain that, the money goes back and the silence goes away, and I don't know what happens after that." I said, Claire, listen to me. Whatever you signed, whatever you're scared of, none of that matters more than right now." She looked at me for a long time, and then she said, "I know a place." And she picked up Sullivan's carrier from behind the door, and she packed a bag in under 7 minutes. I timed it because timing things is what I do. And she handed me a spare key, and she said, "Take care of the plants, okay?" Those were the last words she said to me. Take care of the plants. I watched her drive away. I stood on the side porch for a while afterward, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 15, I genuinely don't know. And then I walked to my car and I drove home. And then I didn't tell anyone what had happened. I know that's the part that breaks everything open. That's the part you've been waiting for since I started talking. Why didn't I tell the police she left voluntarily? Why didn't I explain she'd been scared? Why did I let the whole machine of a missing persons case spin up around a woman who walked out her own side door with her cat and a bag she packed in 7 minutes? Because she asked me not to. Not in words, but she handed me that key and she looked at me in a way that meant, let me go. Let me be gone. Give me the thing I need most right now, which is disappearance without a search party attached to it. And I honored that, at a cost I did not fully anticipate. The cost was becoming the most likely suspect in a disappearance that wasn't a crime. The cost was watching the whole neighborhood turn a cold shoulder. The cost was a lawyer I can't afford, and a detective who still calls me on Tuesdays, and an apartment on the 14th floor of a building where I don't know anyone's name. I still have her spare key. I keep it in the desk drawer, left side under a notebook I've never written in. Sometimes I take it out and I hold it and I think, she's somewhere. She packed a bag in 7 minutes, and she took her cat, and she found the place she knew about, and she's somewhere living a life that doesn't include Calloway Street or Harwick and Sloane or the man who photographed her through a kitchen window. I hope that's true. I need that to be true. Because the alternative, the other thing I think about sometimes at 3 a.m. when the bachata stops and the building goes quiet and the cello player finally puts the instrument down, the alternative is that she never made it to wherever she was going. And if that's the case, then the last person who knew she left, who watched her go, who held the key and said nothing, that would be me. I've been recording this on my phone. I don't know why I do that. Old habit. I record things. Conversations, ideas, observations. It's how I process. You keep the audio, you can always go back and check what you said against what you remember saying. The gaps between those two things are usually where the truth lives. The detective's number is in my recent calls. I've dialed it 4 times this week, hung up each time before it connected. This time, I'm not going to hang up. Not because I've suddenly found my conscience or because the guilt got loud enough to drown everything else out, but because I've been sitting in this apartment long enough to understand something about silence. It doesn't protect you. It just postpones the thing that's already coming. Take care of the plants, she said. I forgot about the plants. They're all dead now.